So, hopping over to round number 2. And again, this is the one I have to apologize for because we had a new player come out for week 1, and I lost the papers. I don't know where they are. They're somewhere in this house, I just don't know. So the new player is playing 8-rack, and I apologize, I cannot remember his name, so that is why his name is currently missing. But we do have Matt Harshman, one of our regulars, in the top 8 over the last couple of seasons. He's been competing in. He's been able to make the top 8. Still looking for his title at this point in time for a Modern Magic Mondays season champion. But this is week 1 and 2 of season number 8. So a good chance that he could be able to pick up some points and be able to kind of climb his way up into the upper echelons of the modern players at our shops. So we're going to have to see. He's going to be rocking out Grixis tokens this time. Has tried out like the Mardu token list, has been kind of adjusting things and trying to figure out what version he likes the best, right? So alright, these players are going to get up and ready to go. Now, for those that are not aware, Star Cities does have a regionals coming up at the beginning of June 2nd. So make sure you guys are getting your modern practice in so you guys can be able to attend some of those events. Alright, both players are going to be rolling to see who gets to go first. And we see a swamp into... Oh, what is the name of that card? That's the one where you make your opponent discard a card of their choosing, and you can discard a land to recast it. And now I cannot remember the name of it to save my life. Ah! That's okay. It happens. Raven's Crime. Thank you, Too Many Lands. That's what it is. I don't know if they knew what each other were playing, because this is only round 2. So there's a chance they did not know what each other were playing, because again, our 8-rack player is very new to playing. I believe that was his first week at our shop. Now, in between rounds, like if one of them had finished their match early, they could have wandered around and seen what each other were playing, and that could have had an effect on it. Matt's going to fetch and go to 19, getting that watery grave there. That Gurmag Angler that he's sitting with in his hand is going to be pretty nice. Oh, Thought Scour himself, shipping away one of his Jaces in the mix here. And here comes Lily. Pretty nice one to lay down. Looks like there was a Serum Visions a spell snare in the hand. There is a Dreadbore though, so even though Lily's going to come down and cause some issues, it's not going to matter too much because he's going to be able to get rid of that next turn. And he says, "Hey, how many cards do you have? I have this Shrieking Affliction on the battlefield." And he says, "Oh, don't worry, I've got plenty of cards." And so Too Many Lands talking about in chat of the mindset of draw or play when you're playing as 8-rack is almost always take the draw with 8-rack depending on the matchup. Now there are some very specific ones where you might want to be on the play and stuff like that, but it's nice to be able to get the extra card. You know your opponent is going to be down a card, so you do get to kind of get things going a little bit differently. Now, certain aggro decks, it might help you to get going first because you can strip away cards a little bit quicker than them getting going. You know, it just all depends on the particular matchups, but it's something to consider for those that are trying to pilot 8-rack. I like the deck a lot. It's a fun one to play. Does take a little bit used to on how to pilot it, and you can see just little nuance things of our 8-rack player just kind of learning sequencing. But he will lose 2 life, draw 2 cards here with that Sign in Blood, dropping down to 18. And here is that Charm, and he says you're going to discard a card, and then there's a land going. I believe Matt's still at 3 cards in his hand. Yeah, he is. He says, I'll discard this land and recast this Raven's Crime from my graveyard. So Matt's sort of debating. He's got that search, and he says, you know what, I'll strip away another land. Probably making that conscious decision of saying, between it, lands are nice, but I don't really need that many right now. But you do have to consider the fact that the 8-rack does run Smallpox and can start destroying your lands. Now, this is just the mono-black version. There are some that are the white-black version that runs like Lingering Souls. It also can run the Flagstaffs of Talakir, or Flagstones of whatever that Find a Plains card is. So it says, hey, here's my search, and I'm going to delve away a bunch of cards and play this 5/5 zombie fish. You better hope that you top deck that Smallpox, or you're going to be taking some damage real quick. But by doing this, Matt is also saying, I'm going to be taking a bunch of damage. You know, guaranteed I'll be taking 2 points of damage for having only 1 card in my hand. There you go. See, chat's keeping me honest with the card names. That's the downside of not having a co-caster here sometimes. And wow, alright, it says I'll just strip away your last card. Matt's going to drop down to 14 off of that Shrieking Affliction. Says, yep, let's come at you for 5. Our 8-rack player dropping down to 15. He says, Young Pyromancer. So that's a nice one to really start generating a lot of threats. You know, again, that token generation, anytime that you're going to be casting those instant sorceries, you're going to be able to make it. Ooh, another Shrieking Affliction. So he's basically saying, hey, let's race, right? Holding on to that land because he knows he can recast that Raven's Crime from the graveyard. So Matt's going to take 6 points of damage. Drops to 8. Serum Vision. Trigger. I'll get myself an Elemental. Not really liking those off the top from the Serum, so we'll at least put one on the bottom there. And Inquisition, Trigger. Says, I'm going to target you, see what you're holding on to. And he's going to say, well, I've got a land. Can't take that. Says, I'm coming at you for 7. So 8 all now. So here's the problem. If our 8-rack player doesn't find a way to stop him, he's going to be taking a lot of damage. And wow, that's a pretty good top deck. It says, Ensnaring Bridge. I have 1 card in my hand, so you can only attack me with creatures with the power of 1. So that means your elementals are the only thing that can attack. Still going to hold on to that swamp, which I think is the right idea here. Adding it onto the battlefield is not going to benefit him any, and he knows that that at least gives him the value of making his opponent discard a card if Matt tries to hold on to anything. But he will take 6 points of damage again, because there's no cards in his hand, and he'll drop down to 2. Now, even if Matt starts to hold on to cards, right, it's not looking good. And he says, hey, I'm going to flip this now, because I've got all these cards in my graveyard. And you can take a look at it, read exactly what it does. Allows me to look at the top couple cards in my library, top 4, pick a non-creature, non-land card, and add it to my hand. He says, okay, here's 2 points of damage coming across, and you'll be at 6. The nice thing about Raven's Crime is the fact that your opponent will not be able to just hold the land and kind of protect themselves. So it looks like another land. He says, hey, I'll discard this land and recast this Raven's Crime. And he says, hey, you have to discard a card of your choosing. And so now Matt's going to decide, okay, is he going to respond to this? Is there any way for him to stay alive off of those double Shrieking Afflictions? And there is not. Thought Scour himself, trigger. So he's basically looking and saying, okay, is there any way that I can draw into something valuable here? Alright, anything to help me? Maybe a lightning bolt to zap ya, but still haven't done enough damage for it to be that relevant. And now he's sort of down, so he says, okay, I'll bolt you, you'll go to 3. I'll get another token. He says, well, I got no cards in hand. And so he says, okay, pass. And he says, Shrieking Affliction will kill you. And Matt just sort of, yep, I can't stop that from dying. Even if I look the top card, add something to my hand, it's, not going to matter. I'm still going to die. You've got 2 of those, no cards in hand. So, game 1. 8-rack takes the lead. That top deck Ensnaring Bridge really saved the day there. And it's a great card to be running in this sort of list because you dump your hand to strip away your opponent's hand, right? So you're basically saying, I'm going to lay down a Lily, uptick her a bunch, strip away your cards from your hands. Some players like to run Mutavolts and stuff to get an extra clock on there, have a blocker available. There's other ways that you can kind of be able to race your opponent a little bit, but it's Waste Not's another one where you can generate some tokens off of it, so you can get some good value off it. So he's going to go through his list here, take a look and see if there's anything worth taking out. So it looks like he's going for the land destruction over extra damage from the Mutavault, which makes a lot of sense, especially if you're going into kind of a unknown meta that there could be some Tron or some land-based big mana decks running around. So, plus, with a lot of decks being 4 or 5 color lists, having that land destruction is nice. Yeah, and Too Many Lands making a good point there, saying that I think Bridge is correct for the current meta being very creature heavy lately. Which is true. Like, if you look at some of the last couple of results, like with humans running around a lot again, you've also got even just like Hexproof lists, you've got the Hollow One list, even with like Jund and Death Shadow stuff, company lists, like there's so many just creatures running around. And then token strategies like Mardu tokens or in this case Grixis. It makes a lot of sense to have those bridges available. Alright, players shuffling up, getting things ready to go here with game number 2 in this best of 3 series. You know, if Matt can get going quick enough, right? If he gets a young Pyromancer down like early kind of thing, like turn 2, and then really just sort of values out, you know, things can work out nicely. He has to be very careful though, because the chance of a smallpox coming up is pretty high. It's, you know, we did not see it in game number 1, but it is something that you have to keep in mind going forward. Alright, drawing up, seeing if we're ready to go. Seeing if this hand will give us what we need. Alright, let's get things going. Dropping down to 18 with the Serum Visions. Decent start here. And we'll follow it up with an Inquisition. So, decent amount of cards here. Looks like more counter spells coming in. He says, hey, do you mind if I take a look? So, nice job asking politely, trying to get things figured out. Okay, opting for the counter, or opting to keep all the counter spells in hand and gets rid of the Kolgan's command there. Wrench Mine going to be used here. And he says, I'm just going to counter-squall that. And we also got to see a rack get thrown down. And that will cause our 8-rack player to lose 2 life. And yeah, Sign in Blood is not something you normally see. But I like the idea here right now. You know, running like a 2-of or something like that if you can afford it in your list. I'm curious what he stripped away to make room for the Sign in Blood, though. A Braid coming down. Let's get rid of that. Artifact. Nice. I like it. Scour myself, he says. I cannot tell what that other mystery card is in his hand at this point in time. The art does not look familiar, sadly. Snaring Bridge and a mystery card. It says here's a land. I'm gonna blow up your Watery Grave, he says. Let's both find a land. Grabs a swamp, of course. Same for Matt. So both gonna swamp it out. Well, that's nice to know that your opponent is not going to be able to cast any double black spells for a little while. So he's debating, he's like, do I care about casting anything right now? There's nothing that I really care about, and you could easily have a counter spell. He says, Inquisition. Well, here are my 2 cards. I'm assuming you're going to get rid of my Ensnaring Bridge. And he's left with the mystery card. Liliana would like to hit the battlefield. And he says, hey, I would like to uptick and have us both discard a card. That quickly discards a land, and our 8-rack player says, well, here's this mystery card that we're not going to talk about because it's in the graveyard now. Dreadbore ready to go. Immediately strips that away. Underworld Connections. That would make sense. I think it is, actually. Looking at the art for it, that would make sense. It says, please discard a card, and I'm going to Bajuka Bog you, of course, so you lose all your cards in your graveyard. No flashback shenanigans. And he says, hey, let's do this again. Yeah, I think, running a couple of these cards to help generate your card advantage there from drawing cards seems nice. Because you can see where now it's like top deck mode, and he's really hoping, wow, that's pretty nice. Smallpox, he says. Please have us both lose a life, discard a card, sack a creature. And he says, okay, I'd like to play this. Here's my creature to sacrifice. Here's my land to get rid of. Here's my life to lose. 17 all. Great way to save that Young Pyromancer, because now Young Pyromancer is going to be most likely protected from any more Smallpox shenanigans, assuming Matt's able to draw into a value card here. Oh, nice strip away. So it looks like he didn't, or he probably would have made a token there. Oh, he's got another one. Wow. Smallpox. He says, let's do it. And Matt just sort of shrugs. Yeah, alright. I'll go to 16. You'll go to 14. I'm winning the life race right now. Engineered for 1. Basically saying, hey, your Shrieking Affliction, your 8 racks are going to get hit with this. But it does cost 2 to activate that, guys. So in order to blow it up, you do have to have that 2 mana. Ah, suspend. I love it. It says, I want to draw a bunch of cards soon. Please, please just let me draw cards. Continues to kind of tick that guy down. So, hey, here's another land pass. But even now, it's like drop down a Shrieking Affliction and the rack to really make him take some damage or make him blow that up, right? Because in 2 turns he's going to be taking a lot, right? And Waste Not coming down. So Waste Not's a fun one, just full of card text, guys. So Matt's going to read, and that deals with whenever your opponent discards a card, right? If it's a creature card, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. If they discard a land card, you just generate mana yourself. And if it's a non-creature, non-land card, you get to draw a card. So another great value one that you'll see players run in 8 rack. Sometimes they're in the board, sometimes they're able to fit it in the main board. Just kind of, it's a good one. So with cards like, Raven's Crime that can always make you discard whenever you discard a land, like there's some good value off this card. It says, I would like to discard a land and have you discard a card. And that's gonna fetch. At least 15. See if he goes down any lower than that. I think he's looking through with the other fetch land and how much he can get away with. And he says, no, I'll just go to 15 and get that basic mountain that I'm running. Looks like it was a non-creature spell, whatever it was, so our 8-rack player was able to draw a card. It says, here's a land. I'd like to lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. Go down to 12. Again, reloading a little bit because he knows that Matt's going to draw a bunch of cards next turn, right? And he basically says, pass. So he says, hey, I'd like to basically draw 4 cards here. Draw 3, draw 1 for turn. Thoughtseize is nice. Search for Escanta is nice. Again, trying to get a bunch of stuff onto the battlefield. Seems like a pretty good play right now, since there's not much coming from our 8-rack player, like threat-wise, right? Yeah, there's a Waste Not, but there's not a rack or anything like that. So he says, Inquisition you. He says, well, I've got Thoughtseize and a Scalding Tarn. He says, hey, lose that land. And he says, I get to draw a card, and I made double black because you discard a land. So I'll play the Shrieking Affliction. He says, hey, you lose 3 life because you have no cards in your hand. So you'll go down to 12. 12 all. Search for Escanta is going to see if he wants to keep that card or throw it in his graveyard. And he says, yeah, well, let's flip that. I'm fine with it being in my hand. Says, hey, please discard a card. He says, I'll bolt you then. Drop you to 9. How does that feel? He says, well, I guess I can't really do anything. It says search for Escanta. Let's find something valuable here. Oh no! Doesn't find anything. Untap. Take 3. Drop to 9. Pass turn, he says. But our 8-rack player is still sitting where he can deal a lot of damage. Or at least strip away a bunch of cards to deal damage. So he says, hey, discard, recast this, you lose a card from your hand. I get to draw a card because, hey, it's a non-land card and non-creature card. It says, let's spin the wheel again. Search it out. I'm trying to take less damage. Looks like there's a Jace, a Snapcaster, and a Serum Visions. Cannot take the Snapcaster, so opts for the Jace here. He'll take 2 damage, go to 7. Says, alright, time for the old Jace plan. So he's debating on whether or not he's going to uptick. Oh, you're right. I'm mixing things up. You are right. If your player has 1 or fewer cards, he still loses 3. So instead of losing 2, he'll be at 6. Yeah, it's different than the rack. The rack is the one that is that descending order based on the number of cards you have in your hand. Thanks, Lyle. Oh, so he keeps checking his own cards. So I'm assuming Matt's down to 3 then, if he passed back over. So here he has to blow up Shrieking Affliction, or he's... Well, no, because he can get 2 cards in his hand, right? Well, never mind. He's going to lose a bunch of cards, so he just says, hey, I'm going to play this Snapcaster, and I'll bolt you. I'm guessing. No, he says, maybe he'll target Bolt and wait to cast it here, or pick one of his counter spells and wait to do that. He says, I'll kill that. Going for the throat. Bolt you. You'll go to 6. Let's blow this up, he says. So I can stick it out. Try to win on the back of Jace. Looks like, hey, I'll brainstorm. Draw 3 cards. Try to get some value from these cards. Hate Rack, love that deck. It's medium sauce, but it's fun. It is a fun deck, and it's a relatively straightforward deck to get into Modern with, and that's what I apologize. I don't remember our 8-rack player's name. I lost the sheet somewhere in my house, so I misplaced it in the 2 weeks since we played this round. So. Doing my best to try to remember the player's name, but you know, he's new to Modern, so trying it out, and it's a good intro deck. But we see he says, you know what, I'm going to 4. I'm going to draw 2 more cards. Please discard 2 of those cards in your hand, good sir, he says. It's all that value you sat there and tried to get. It's not going to work. And if any of those are non-land, non-creature cards, that allows our 8-rack player to draw cards off of Waste Not. It says boom, boom. It says let's use our search for Escant to find some value, and that's a pretty good card. It says I find this lightning bolt. In response, I'll bolt you. Not that it's gonna matter. 1 life is nice and all, but when you're at 0, doesn't really matter. So 8-rack takes the victory there with that Shrieking Affliction sitting on the battlefield. Matt had 1 card in hand. He's going to be taking the 3. So moving right along with the rounds. Again, this is kind of a combination tonight between week 1 and week 2. So we've got like 7 rounds or so of coverage. Just kind of flying through the best we can. So let's hop on over and continue along with our Modern Magic action. And it seems to be the night of new faces. So we've got